Drummerly.com Unlimited Drama Series.
The sound of Sandra's hushed voice drifting through our bedroom window at midnight should have been my first real clue. I was underneath my beat-up Ford pickup in the driveway, wrestling with a stubborn oil pan, when I heard her talking to someone on the phone. The conversation was too quiet to make out words, but the tone was all wrong. Intimate, secretive. The kind of voice she used to use with me about 15 years ago. Probably ordering more junk from those late-night shopping channels, I muttered to myself, wiping grease off my hands with an old rag. She's got an addiction to fake deals and fake orgasms. My name is David Chen. No, wait, that's not right. My name is David Miller, and I've been running Miller's hardware store in this godforsaken New England town for the better part of 20 years. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business, where Mrs. Winslow from next door can tell you what brand of cereal the Johnsons bought last Tuesday, and where secrets have the lifespan of a mayfly in summer. Sandra and I have been married for 18 years. She's a real estate agent now, all sharp suits and sharper ambitions, climbing the ladder at Pinnacle Properties like her life depends on it. Maybe it does. Our daughter Maddie is away at college, studying communications and spending my money on things I can't pronounce. The marriage has been cooling for months now, like coffee left on the counter too long. Sandra works late, I work early. She talks about square footage and market values. I talk about socket wrenches and wood screws. We're like two ships passing in the night, except one ship is heading for an iceberg, and the other one is too stupid to see it coming. That night, lying in bed listening to Sandra's breathing, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The phone call, the way she'd been dressing lately, more makeup, newer clothes, that particular kind of energy that comes from having a secret. I'd seen it before in customers' wives, the ones who came into the store buying gifts for their husbands that were clearly meant for someone else. The next morning, Sandra was already gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter, early showing. Back tonight. Love you. The love you looked rushed, like an afterthought. I made coffee and stared out at our backyard, where the fence needed painting and the garden needed weeding. Everything in our life needed something, and nobody seemed to have the time or energy to fix it. At the store, I went through the motions, helped old Mr. Patterson find the right screws for his deck project, listened to Jenny Martinez complain about her leaky faucet for the third time this month, sold paint to the Hendersons, who were finally doing something about their bathroom. Normal day, normal problems, normal solutions. But that evening, when I got home, Sandra's car wasn't in the driveway. It was 8:30, well past dinner time. I called her cell phone and got voicemail. Hi, you've reached Sandra Miller with Pinnacle Properties. Leave a message and I'll get back to you faster than you can say sold. The cheerful enthusiasm in her recorded voice made my stomach turn. I was heating up leftover pizza when Mrs. Winslow knocked on the back door. Eleanor Winslow is 73 years old, 5 feet tall, and has the observational skills of a CIA operative, combined with the discretion of a town crier. She also makes the best chocolate chip cookies in a 3-county radius. David, honey, she said, settling into a kitchen chair, without being invited. We need to talk. About what, Mrs. W? About that fancy red sports car that's been parking in your driveway when you're not home. I set down my pizza slice. What red sports car? Belongs to that Trent fellow. You know, the one who works with Sandra. Tall, muscular, looks like he spends more time at the gym than a reasonable person should. She paused, studying my face. You didn't know, did you? Know what? Honey, that car's been in your driveway more than yours has. And not just during business hours, if you catch my meaning. I caught her meaning, all right. It hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Trent Morrison. I knew the name, knew the face. Sandra had mentioned him before. Her business associate, she called him. He'd been to a few company parties, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and talked about market penetration with a straight face. The kind of guy who called everyone buddy and had a handshake like a vice grip. The kind of guy my wife was apparently sleeping with. I spent the next 3 days conducting my own investigation. It wasn't hard. Sandra had gotten sloppy, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. I found a second cell phone bill hidden in her desk drawer. Calls and texts to Trent's number at all hours. Hotel receipts from places I'd never been. A spare key to our house that I'd never seen before. The worst part was how obvious it had been. The late nights, the new underwear, the way she'd started going to the gym religiously, the way she'd look at her phone and smile, then quickly put it away when I walked into the room. On Thursday night, I followed her. She told me she was showing a house to out-of-town clients. Instead, she drove to Trent's apartment complex on the other side of town. I sat in my truck across the street and watched her use a key to let herself in. She didn't come out for 3 hours. When she got home that night, I was waiting in the kitchen. "How was the showing?" I asked. "Oh, difficult clients. Very picky." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed." "Sandra." She stopped at the foot of the stairs. "What? We need to talk." "Can it wait until tomorrow? I have an early appointment." "With Trent?" The color drained from her face. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she straightened her shoulders and looked at me with the kind of cold determination I'd seen her use on difficult sellers. "I don't know what you think you know, David, but I know you're sleeping with him." She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." We stared at each other across our kitchen, 18 years of marriage reduced to this moment. She could have denied it. She could have apologized. She could have tried to explain. Instead, she said, "What are you going to do about it?" The question hung in the air like smoke. What was I going to do about it? File for divorce? Throw her out? Cry? Beg her to stay? "I don't know yet," I said. She nodded, like that was the answer she'd expected. "Well, when you figure it out, let me know." Then she went upstairs, and I sat alone in my kitchen, wondering how my life had become someone else's bad country song. The next Friday night, I found Trent at Murphy's Bar on Main Street. He was holding court at a corner table, telling some story to a group of his real estate buddies. Expensive watch, expensive shirt, expensive laugh. Everything about him screamed money and success, and the kind of confidence that comes from taking other people's things. I walked over to his table and stood there until the conversation died. "David." Trent's voice was too loud, too friendly. "Hey there, buddy. How's the hardware business?" "Can't complain," I said. "How's the wife-stealing business?" The table went quiet. Trent's smile faltered for just a second, then snapped back into place. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me." I picked up his beer, some imported thing that probably cost more than I made in an hour, and poured it slowly into his lap. "Oops, sorry. I was aiming for your dignity, but I missed." Trent jumped up, expensive pants dripping. "So what the hell's wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me is that my wife is sleeping with a piece of garbage who thinks other people's lives are his personal shopping mall." "Now hold on." "No, you hold on." I stepped closer and Trent stepped back. For all his gym muscles, he wasn't used to actual confrontation. "You want to play house with my wife? Fine. But you're going to pay for the privilege." "Are you threatening me?" I smiled. "No, Trent. I'm promising you." I left him standing there in his wet pants, surrounded by his embarrassed friends. It felt good. It felt like the first real thing I'd done in months, but it was just the beginning. Sandra was waiting when I got home, pacing the living room like a caged animal. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I introduced myself to your boyfriend." "He's not my—" She stopped, realizing there was no point in lying anymore. "David, you can't just go around humiliating people." "Why not? You've been humiliating me for months." "That's different." "How?" She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she tried a different approach. "Look, I know this is hard, but we need to be adults about this. We need to think about Maddie, about our future." "Our future?" I laughed, and it came out harder than I intended. "Sandra, there is no our future. You made that decision when you started screwing Trent. Don't be crude." "Crude? You want to see crude? Crude is finding hotel receipts in your purse. Crude is listening to you lie to my face every single day. Crude is having Mrs. Winslow tell me that my wife's boyfriend has been using my driveway like his personal parking space." Sandra's face went white. "Mrs. Winslow needs to mind her own business." Mrs. Winslow is the only person in this neighborhood who's been honest with me. That weekend, things got worse. Maddie came home from college for a visit, and within an hour, she was taking sides. Not my side. "Ah, Dad, you're being ridiculous," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Mom deserves to be happy." "And I don't? You're not even trying. When's the last time you took her somewhere nice? When's the last time you bought her flowers? When's the last time she acted like she wanted flowers from me?" Maddie finally looked up, and her expression was pure teenage contempt. Maybe if you weren't such a loser, she wouldn't need to find happiness somewhere else. The words hit like a physical blow. This was my daughter, my little girl, who used to help me in the hardware store, who used to think I was the smartest man in the world. "Maddie, whatever, Dad. I'm going to stay at Mom's friend Ellen's house. At least there, people don't spend all their time being bitter and pathetic." Ellen Carver, Sandra's best friend since college, the one who'd been encouraging Sandra's independence for years, the one who'd probably been cheering from the sidelines during this whole affair. After Maddie left, the house felt empty and hostile. Every room held memories that now felt like lies. The bedroom where Sandra and I used to talk about our dreams, the kitchen where we'd planned Maddie's birthday parties, the living room where we'd watched movies and argued about the remote control. Now it was just a house where three people lived separate lives, connected only by shared mortgage payments and mutual resentment. I started spending more time at Ray's gym downtown. Ray Kowalski was an old friend from high school, a former Golden Gloves boxer who now trained kids and middle-aged men going through midlife crises. The gym was old school, heavy bags, speed bags, no fancy machines or mirrors, just sweat and honest work. "You look like hell, Miller," Ray said one evening as I worked the heavy bag. "Feel like hell, too. Want to talk about it?" So I told him. All of it. The affair, the lies, the way my own daughter looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. Ray listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or grunting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You know what your problem is?" he finally said. "Enlighten me. You're playing defense. You're letting them set the rules, call the shots, decide what happens next. You want my advice? That's why I'm here. Stop being the victim. You want payback? Don't get mad, get smart. Make them sweat. Make them run." "What do you mean?" Ray smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "I mean, it's time to go on offense." Going on offense turned out to be easier than I'd expected. When you've been married to someone for 18 years, you learn things. You know their passwords, their habits, their weaknesses. You know where they hide things and how they think. Sandra's laptop password was Maddie's birthday, followed by our anniversary year. Her email password was the same. Her secret phone was hidden in a shoebox in her closet, and the password was Trent's birthday. I spent a week reading through everything. Text messages that made my stomach turn, emails planning their future together, photos I wished I could unsee. But buried in all the romantic garbage, I found something interesting. Ellen Carver wasn't just Sandra's cheerleader in this affair. She was the architect. The emails went back 8 months, long before Sandra and Trent had even started working together. Ellen had introduced them at a party, encouraged Sandra to explore her options, and provided cover stories for their meetings. She'd even helped Sandra find a lawyer to discuss divorce proceedings. But Ellen's motives weren't friendship, they were business. Buried in the email chain was a proposal Ellen had sent to Trent. She wanted to buy Miller's hardware store, tear it down, and build a strip mall. She'd already lined up investors and gotten preliminary approval from the city planning committee. All she needed was for Sandra to get me to sell. The affair wasn't about love or happiness or Sandra finding herself. It was about real estate development and money. My wife was sleeping with Trent, so Ellen could destroy my business and build a shopping center. I sat in my kitchen at 2 in the morning, staring at the laptop screen, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a conspiracy. Fine. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them what games looked like. The next morning, I started making phone calls. First, to my lawyer, Tom Bradley, who'd handled the store's incorporation years ago. Then, to my accountant. Then, to my insurance agent. By noon, I had a clear picture of my financial situation and my options. Then I started making changes. I removed Sandra from all the business accounts. Legally, since the store was incorporated in my name before we were married, she had no claim to it. I changed the locks on the store and the house. I canceled the credit cards she'd been using for her business expenses. The hotel rooms, the expensive dinners, the gifts for Trent. But the real masterstroke was the house. Sandra loved that house. She'd spent years decorating it, renovating it, turning it into the perfect showcase for her real estate career. She brought clients there for meetings, hosted dinner parties, used it as a symbol of her success. So I put it up for sale. Not through Pinnacle Properties, through their biggest competitor, Hartley Real Estate. I listed it below market value for a quick sale and gave them exclusive rights. Within 2 days, I had 3 offers. Sandra found out on Wednesday evening when she came home to find a for sale sign.
You wrote him love poems. In 10 years, you never wrote me a word.
It was emotional.
How is he telling in another?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
On the front lawn and strangers walking through our living room with a Hartley agent. What the hell is this? She demanded, storming into the kitchen where I was calmly eating dinner. It's called real estate, Sandra. I thought you'd be familiar with the concept. You can't sell this house. Actually, I can. It's in my name. Check the deed. Her face went through several colors before settling on purple. This is my home. No, this is my house. Your home is apparently wherever Trent is. She grabbed her phone and started dialing. I'm calling my lawyer. Go ahead. Tom Bradley already checked. Everything's legal. The conversation that followed wasn't pretty. Sandra screamed, threatened, and finally broke down, crying. She accused me of being vindictive, cruel, and unreasonable. She said I was destroying our family, ruining Maddie's life, and throwing away 18 years of marriage. You threw it away the first time you slept with him, I said. That's not fair. Fair? I stood up and she stepped back. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been telling me you were unhappy instead of sneaking around behind my back. Fair would have been asking for a divorce before you started screwing your business partner. Fair would have been not letting your best friend use our marriage as a real estate development project. What are you talking about? I showed her the emails. All of them. Ellen's plan, the strip mall proposal, the timeline that showed Ellen had orchestrated the entire affair. Sandra read in silence, her face growing paler with each message. When she finished, she looked up at me with something that might have been shame. David, I didn't know. Yes, you did. I swear, I thought Ellen was just being supportive. You knew exactly what you were doing. You all did. She tried to argue, but the evidence was overwhelming. Every meeting, every lie, every secret rendezvous had been planned and coordinated. I wasn't just a cheated-on husband. I was the target of a deliberate campaign to destroy my life and steal my business. What do you want? Sandra finally asked. I want you out of my house. Where am I supposed to go? I hear Trent has a nice apartment. She left that night taking only a suitcase. I watched from the kitchen window as she loaded her car, her movements sharp and angry. She made 3 phone calls while she packed, probably to Trent, Ellen, and her lawyer. I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own life. But I was just getting started. The house sold in 6 days. Cash offer, no contingencies, close in 2 weeks. Sandra tried to stop the sale through her lawyer, but Tom Bradley had done his homework. Everything was legal and binding. While the lawyers fought over paperwork, I focused on the real targets, Trent and Ellen. Trent was easy. He drove a cherry red Corvette that he parked in the same spot at his gym every morning at 6 a.m. He was a creature of habit. Workout, protein shake, shower, office. Predictable as sunrise. On Thursday morning, while Trent was inside doing whatever it is that vain men do with dumbbells, I paid his car a visit. Nothing illegal, nothing that couldn't be explained as vandalism by person or persons unknown. Sugar in the gas tank. 4 slashed tires. Homewrecker, spray painted across the hood in bright yellow letters. The security cameras at the gym were old and poorly positioned. I knew because I'd installed the system 3 years ago when the owner, Pete Kowalski, Ray's brother, had asked for a favor. Pete was happy to discover that the cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned between 5:30 and 6:30 that morning. Trent's reaction was everything I'd hoped for. He called the police, filed a report, and spent the day ranting to anyone who would listen about psychotic ex-husbands and criminal behavior. The more he talked, the more people learned about his affair with Sandra Miller, the hardware store owner's wife. In a town like ours, that kind of gossip spreads faster than wildfire. Ellen was a bigger challenge. She was smart, careful, and had been planning this for months. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. Ellen worked out of a home office, running a property development consulting business that specialized in urban renewal projects. Her client list included several major retail chains looking to expand into small New England towns. She was good at her job, professional, and completely ruthless. She was also embezzling from her clients. I found the evidence in Sandra's emails: invoices for services never rendered, expense reports for trips never taken, consulting fees for projects that existed only on paper. Ellen had been skimming money for years, hiding it in a complex web of shell companies and fake contractors. I printed everything and sent copies to her 3 biggest clients, along with a polite note explaining that I'd discovered these documents while investigating my wife's affair and thought they might be interested in reviewing their recent billings. Ellen's business collapsed in 48 hours. 2 clients filed fraud charges. The third demanded a full audit, and her professional reputation was destroyed. The strip mall project died with her business, and suddenly no one was interested in buying Miller's hardware store for development. But I wasn't finished. On Saturday afternoon, I drove to Ellen's house, a pretentious colonial in the expensive part of town, and knocked on her door. She answered wearing yoga pants and a desperate expression. "David, we need to talk." "No, Ellen, you need to listen." I pushed past her into the living room, where Sandra and Trent were sitting on the couch, looking like refugees from a disaster movie. Sandra's eyes were red from crying. Trent had scratches on his face from the broken glass of his car windows. "Cozy," I said. "The 3 conspirators plotting their next move." "David, please," Sandra started. "Shut up." My voice was quiet, but something in it made her flinch. "You had your chance to talk. Now it's my turn." I looked at each of them in turn. "Ellen, your business is finished. Your clients know you're a thief, and your professional reputation is garbage. You'll be lucky if you don't go to prison." Ellen's face was white. "You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You orchestrated this whole thing to get my property. You used Sandra's unhappiness and Trent's ego to destroy my marriage so you could force me to sell my store. You're not just a thief, Ellen. You're a predator." I turned to Trent. "And you're not a homewrecker, Trent. You're just a tool. Ellen used you like a hammer to break up my marriage, and you were too stupid to realize it." Trent started to stand up, but I took a step toward him, and he sat back down. "You want to know the funny part? She was going to cut you out of the deal once she got what she wanted. Check your emails. It's all there." Finally, I looked at Sandra, my wife of 18 years, the mother of my daughter, the woman I'd loved since we were both young and stupid and full of dreams. "And you," I said, "you threw away 18 years for what? For him? For her? For a fantasy that was never real?" "David, I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan failed. You're sorry you're going to lose everything. But you're not sorry for what you did to me, to us, to our family." I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. "This is a group text I just sent to everyone in my contact list. It includes the photos you sent to Trent, Sandra, the emails about your business plan, Ellen, and the video I took of Trent's car this morning, right after someone vandalized it." All 3 of them stared at the phone in horror. "By tonight, everyone in town will know exactly what you 3 have been doing. Your clients, your friends, your neighbors, your families. Everyone." "You can't do this," Ellen whispered. "I just did." I put the phone away and headed for the door. "Oh, and Sandra? Maddie called me this morning. She saw the photos you sent to Trent. She wanted me to tell you that she's ashamed to be your daughter." I left them sitting there in Ellen's living room. 3 people who had tried to destroy my life and ended up destroying their own. but I still wasn't finished. The annual Millbrook Fall Festival happens every October in the town square. It's the biggest event of the year. Craft booths, food vendors, live music, and speeches from local business leaders and politicians. This year, as a longtime business owner and festival sponsor, I'd been invited to speak. I accepted. The festival was packed. Half the town was there, including Sandra, Trent, and Ellen, who were trying to keep low profiles near the back of the crowd. They looked miserable, which was exactly how I wanted them to look. When my name was called, I walked up to the microphone on the main stage and looked out at the sea of faces. These were my neighbors, my customers, people I'd known for 20 years. They deserved to know the truth. Good afternoon, I began. I'm David Miller, owner of Miller's Hardware Store. I've been part of this community for 2 decades, and I've always tried to be honest in my business dealings and personal relationships. I paused, letting that sink in. Unfortunately, not everyone shares those values. Over the past few months, I've discovered that some people I trusted, people I considered friends and family, have been working together to destroy my business and my marriage for their own financial gain. A murmur went through the crowd. I saw Sandra's face go pale. I'm not going to name names because most of you already know who I'm talking about. The story's been all over town for the past week. But I want to make one thing clear. When people try to take what's yours, when they lie to you and betray you and think they can get away with it because you're too nice or too stupid to fight back, you have 2 choices. I looked directly at Sandra, then at Trent, then at Ellen. You can roll over and let them win, or you can show them what happens when they mess with the wrong person. The crowd was completely silent now. I chose option 2. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. This envelope contains copies of emails, text messages, financial records, and photographs that document a conspiracy to defraud me of my property and destroy my marriage. It also contains evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and other criminal activities. I held up the envelope for everyone to see. I'm donating this evidence to the Millbrook Historical Society so future generations can learn about the importance of honesty and integrity in business and personal relationships. I walked over to Mrs. Patterson, the Historical Society president, and handed her the envelope. She accepted it with a shocked expression. Thank you for your time, I said into the microphone. And remember, shop local, support honest businesses, and always read the fine print. I stepped down from the stage to scattered applause and confused murmurs. But I wasn't finished yet. I walked straight through the crowd towards Sandra, Trent, and Ellen. People stepped aside to let me pass, sensing that something dramatic was about to happen. When I reached them, I stopped and smiled. Hello, Sandra. David, please. I just wanted to thank you, I said, loud enough for the people around us to hear. If you hadn't been so greedy and stupid, I never would have discovered what a snake Ellen is. And if Ellen hadn't been so arrogant, I never would have found all that evidence of her embezzlement. Ellen tried to back away, but there were too many people behind her. And Trent, I continued, turning to face him, I especially want to thank you for being such a perfect patsy. Ellen played you like a violin, and you never even realized it. Trent's face was red with anger and embarrassment. You son of a... He swung at me. I saw it coming from a mile away and stepped aside. Trent's momentum carried him forward, and he stumbled into the decorative fountain in the center of the square. The crowd gasped, then burst into laughter as Trent flailed around in 3 feet of water, soaking wet and covered in fountain algae. Careful, Trent, I called out. That water's pretty shallow. Kinda like you. Security guards were pushing through the crowd now, but I wasn't worried. I hadn't thrown a punch or broken any laws. I'd just given a speech and stepped out of the way when someone tried to hit me. Sandra was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Ellen was trying to disappear into the crowd, but people were pointing at her and whispering. Trent was climbing out of the fountain, dripping and humiliated. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of all 3 of them, Sandra crying, Ellen fleeing, Trent soaking wet. Then I posted it to social media with the caption, "When Karma Comes to Town." Within minutes, the photo had dozens of likes and comments. By evening, it would be shared hundreds of times. I walked back to my truck and drove home, to the small apartment I'd rented after selling the house. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Clean, honest, and free of lies. That night, I got a call from Maddie. She'd seen the festival video that someone had posted online. "Dad?" she said, and her voice sounded young and uncertain. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm sorry about what I said before about taking Mom's side. I didn't know about Ellen and the business stuff. It's okay, Maddie. You're my daughter no matter what. Can I come visit you next weekend? I'd like that." After we hung up, I sat in my small living room and thought about the future. Miller's hardware store was safe. My marriage was over, but maybe that was for the best. My daughter was speaking to me again. Sandra, Trent, and Ellen had all lost everything they'd schemed to gain. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was honest. And after months of lies and betrayal, honesty felt like the most valuable thing in the world. I poured myself a beer and raised it in a toast to my empty apartment. "Here's to new beginnings," I said out loud, and to the fact that in this town, the good guys sometimes do win. Outside, I could hear the distant sounds of the festival winding down. Tomorrow, people would be talking about what had happened, analyzing every word of my speech and every detail of Trent's humiliating tumble into the fountain. But tonight, for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. Justice, it turned out, was better than revenge, and much more satisfying. 6 months later, Sandra moved away to start over in another state. Trent left town after his real estate license was suspended. Ellen was indicted for embezzlement and fraud, and Miller's hardware store had its best year ever, as customers came from all over the county to shop at the place owned by that guy who exposed the conspiracy. Sometimes doing the right thing really does pay off.